Give me a pen, Ben.
All right, it being 6:30, I'll call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order. First order of business is going to be to approve the minutes from last week, March 24th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
None. Motion carries 4 with 1 abstention. Next, we have 2 permits for the operation of the racetracks. The first one's for Winchester Speed Park, and the second one's for Monadnock Speedway, and everything is in order with both of them.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Ben, there is a second piece to the WSP Speed Park, is the lease. They lease a piece of land. That's attached there too.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even see that on the back. So this is just a lease contract that we normally have
Every year.
every year. Yeah, so we'll need a motion to approve the lease
Make a
on the
motion
land.
to approve it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Next, we have 2 abatements that are both recommended to approve from Avatar. The first one is for map 32, lot 2, at 290 Keene Road, and the amount of $820. And the second one is map 26, lot 59, at 22 Parker Street, for $340.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Next, we have a letter here from the DOT. As we all know, they're going to be doing they're working on the paving on Richmond Road and the crosswalk up by the church on Richmond Road that we have been maintaining for a number of years already. Apparently, according to their records, they still maintain it. So what they've sent along is a waiver for us to relieve them of responsibilities of the maintenance of that crosswalk. And it's something we've already been doing, so it's not adding to our workload. Just clearing up their books. So we'll need a motion to approve and sign this.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. There's only room for 1 signature for mine and some other info, so I'll fill that out in a minute. Wrong pile. Next, we finally heard back from Rob DeLuzio. He would like to meet with us April 7th at our regular Wednesday night. And we're just, Carrie or Barry, I'm not sure, oh, Carrie, was wondering if there was any specific questions the board had that might be helpful if we get them to Rob ahead of time, so he can be prepared to answer them. Did Barry have any specific questions? No? I mean, Rob pretty much knows what we want to talk about already.
I don't know what Barry and Rob's conversation was.
Yeah.
But Barry said if there was any other questions, we should give them to him ahead of time.
Okay. Well, I feel like if anybody thinks of any questions they'd like to present beforehand, and like at least at the worst case scenario, I'd say 3 or 4 days before the date. I wouldn't go to Carrie on the 6th with a question because Rob won't have time to prepare. But if anybody has anything, get it to Carrie and she can send it on.
I'll send it off to Rob.
Next, we have a application for current use. This is for, let me find it here. Map 7, Lot 4. Wait a minute, there's three different maps here, or lots. So it's map 7, Lot 3, 4, and 7. And everything's in order with this, Carrie?
Yes.
So we'll just need a motion to approve this.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. Trying to figure out, I can't read nothing, I ain't even got the glasses on. Hey, that's better. And in the financial folder, we have a request for payment from the Water Capital Reserve Fund to Wilson Controls for $6,750.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. So now, Dale, do you have any good news on loader?
Yes, I think so. I went up and tried out the Volvo yesterday up in Concord. Was very impressed with that machine. I got to digging the gravel piles up there for a while with it. Take all the measurements and everything on it, and it's runs neck and neck with what we got, size-wise.
That one goes up high enough?
Goes up plenty high. It's actually a little bit higher than what we have. So that was nice by, I don't know, 5 or 6 more inches.
Yeah, and that, the Volvo was,
The Volvo L60H.
yeah, that was quite a bit cheaper than the Cat,
Yeah.
or the John Deere.
The John Deere and the Case, it was cheaper.
Yep.
Yeah.
So is that what your
I
recommendation
think
is?
I recommend that to go on the ballot. That was a nice machine.
Yep.
Pretty confident that I'll do what we need it to do.
All right. Well, at this point, that'll have to be a change we make it deliberative.
Yeah.
So, just get the information over to Carrie that would be needed for that, and we will,
Change the salary.
yeah, we'll do an amendment at deliberative
Okay.
to that to change it to the Volvo with the lower dollar amount.
Yeah.
The board's okay with that request?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll put it in Saturday and,
Okay. Sounds good.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Hey, Dale, I got one question. Now, your attachments are gonna fit onto this, or you gotta buy something special to operate your attachments for it?
No, it's gonna have the same coupler so we can use all our old attachments.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought that it was, but I just wanted to bring it up, make sure.
yeah, we'll be able to hook up to everything we have with it.
Okay.
No, thank you, Dale. Well, since I just mentioned it, I will remind everybody that Saturday at the school is the town's deliberative. That's at 8 a.m.?
9.
9 a.m. I get so many meetings, it's hard to remember which ones are which. So 9 o'clock Saturday at the school is the town's deliberative session, and the following Saturday is the school's deliberative session at the school. And Dennis sent on a list here. It's quite long, so if anybody would like to see what it's about, they can request a copy of it. But it's the moderator's rules of procedure for town meeting, which is basically just a breakdown of what the rules have always been. This, he just wanted to get them out there to people in case they were unaware of what they were. That's all I have in the folder. I don't have anything else. Does anybody from any other board members have anything? No? You didn't have anything else, right, Carrie? All right, at this time I will open it to the floor for 15 minutes of public comment. I saw Lindsay debating on standing up.
Thank you for waiting, Ben. Lindsay Picard, 96 Richmond Road. Are we not going to hear from Officer Fisher today?
Yes, yes, we are.
Is that happening
Yep.
before public comment?
No, if you want, I can pause public comment. And
I would love that.
Allow Officer Fisher. Jim, if you would like to come to the microphone. I apologize. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening.
So as you're well aware, last week there was a question during public comment on what our police force looks like right now and what's basically the day-to-day operations of the police force at this point.
So, in the month of March, the police department has responded to 185 call for services. We've made 14 arrests. We've had 3 traffic accidents that have been investigated and 24 incidents. Last week, Officer Fox seized 50 bindle bags of heroin, took that off the streets from getting into the homes. We've investigated 5 domestic violence cases and or orders of protection. Officer Howard will be returning to work tomorrow from his injuries. I went to the high school last week. I spoke with the principal. Officer Edson completed an OHRV driving course. We inspected the raceway, and Officer Merkel has had his 6-month review, and I'm very happy to say that he's shown a great deal of competency. And I asked for forgiveness because one, I couldn't understand with a mask on, and if I could hear the questions that were posed last week, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jim.
I know one was basically, are we staffed for all of our hours of operation, basically. I know there was a concern that there may be some lapse in time where, like we've had,
There's been
besides,
coverage.
besides besides the one resident, there has been other people that said they don't seem to see the police cruisers out as much as they used to. And just, they were more curious, is that because of staffing or?
Well, I would have to say that some of it is due to staffing. Nonetheless, I'd also have to say a lot of it is due to the thorough and competency of the cases that were turned into prosecution.
So it's the workload as far as paperwork wise and office work wise
Correct.
has increased.
Yes.
Was there any other questions that went with that? I'm trying to remember a week ago.
So the rest of my questions, I think, were really more for the select board.
If you'd like to come to the microphone again, Lindsay, yeah.
I'm very happy to hear statistics. I think that a monthly report from our police would be awesome for the town to hear about the things that are going on in a positive light and the metrics that are driving our police. But my question is also for the select board. Is this the model that we're looking at? Are you actively searching for a chief? What is your plan for that job? What do you consider fully staffed? Because we know that you're not. I don't know that those are questions for...
Well, we'd already addressed the police chief questions about a month ago when they came up, and nothing has changed there. That there's no listing out there or job listing or anything like that out there for a police chief. We haven't started that search yet. As far as the staffing with the police department, besides the chief line item, it is fully staffed.
What do you consider fully staffed? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, every officer position that we've ever had is full, except for the chief position. We have a lieutenant, a sergeant, all the full-time officers and all the part-time officers are all completely full.
I mean, are you going to make me spelunk through the records? What's the number? How many is that?
The
Is
number?
that 4 full-time, 2 part-time, a lieutenant, a detective?
It's a lieutenant, a sergeant, I think 3 full-time. Is that correct?
Right now, we have 3 full-time working. We have one officer who's coming back tomorrow from FMLA. We have an officer slated for the police academy.
Yep.
And we have one open position.
And that's also 3 full-time, 3 part-time officers too, right?
Correct.
And so it is not the select board's intent to replace the chief of police?
Oh, it is at some point. It is at some point.
Do you have a target date for when that might be?
No, it will. We're hoping for soon to be able to advertise something.
What's the holdup?
Well, like I mentioned a month ago, we're discussing other avenues.
But those discussions aren't happening at your meeting.
Well, no, they did a couple months ago, and we've reached out to some other police departments that do other options besides just a regular full-time police chief. Basic questions of how's it work for you, what you're doing, do you have any positive or negative feedback on how you're doing it, do you regret it, are you happy with it, stuff like that, just to see what else could possibly work for Winchester. But as of today, we still haven't received any word back from any of the towns that have been reached out to.
And you believe that that conversation happened in a public meeting?
It was during a public meeting that we said that we were going to email these other towns.
Thank you. I think that it's really important to note that your intent might not be to replace the chief of police and that you're looking at other options for what would be appropriate for this town and that you're waiting for feedback from other towns, but it might be nice to have some kind of target date for that. Thank you.
Thank you. There any other public comment?
everyone. Mary Gannon, I live at 33 Parker Street. I come with a couple questions tonight, but I want to piggyback off of Lindsay's, I think it's Lindsay, point also. I would really encourage you to think about how to pull in some community comment about the police force situation and what the community needs. I do a lot of work with law enforcement in the state of Vermont, and one of the things that we're doing over there is we're pulling together communities to have community safety reviews, to really think about what is most needed, to not just go with a sort of like a standard, typical police force, but to really think about what the town of Winchester, in terms of what we know we are facing in terms of crime or other kinds of issues, and to rely on the community to get some input from that. And I think that would be also important for the current police force to be a part of that. So I would be happy to help you organize something like that, where you could do like a community conversation and get some input from folks. And that leads me to my next question. I don't come to select board meetings often because this is kind of a tricky time of the week. I have other organizations that I'm also in board meetings for, and et cetera. But one of the things I wanted to ask you all is, given this sort of current moment that we are in, with these deliberative sessions coming up and a lot of issues that are facing communities around the pandemic, schooling, policing, racial justice, poverty, I would like to hear from each of you tonight, if you would honor me with a few moments of your time. I'd like to hear what each of you are committed to in terms of thinking about the issues of economic and racial justice that are facing our town right now. We are a community that is, where there's a lot of us that really care about creating a welcoming, inclusive community, and I think for the most part, many of us feel that it is that way. And then I think there are a lot of people who live here or who would like to be here who don't necessarily feel that this is a place where they can be, and we unfortunately have a reputation in different parts of the county that this is not a place where we support people who come from a range of different identities, race, culture, ethnicity, nationality. So I'm not putting any shame or blame, but this is something that I know a lot of us have been thinking about, and if we really want to pull this community in a direction where we are pulling in economic opportunity and creating a healthy community for our kids, I'm really interested what the role is of the select board in making that happen, and what each of you are doing to address some of the more kind of socioeconomic and cultural issues that we are facing right now in this community. So I don't know if you've been asked that question before, but it's something I've been thinking about, and I would really like to hear from each of you. What are you doing as a select board member to further to further social justice and the fact that we have a lot of disparities that we struggle with in this community? And what is your work around that?
Could you give us an example?
Sure, I could give you an example. I think that we have, I mean, Jack, I think if I know correctly, you're the owner of the big brown boarding house, right? And I appreciate all the work that you do to seem to bring in people who really struggle, who need a place to live, creating affordable housing for people, creating an opportunity for people to garden and grow their own food. I mean, these are the kinds of things that I think we need to be giving a lot of attention to. Some of you have been on the select board for a long time and are very aware, maybe you were born and raised here, have a very strong understanding of what the issues are that we face here. But with this pandemic and what's happening with our kids, what's happening with families in terms of food insecurity, I feel like it's something that I really want my select board to be taking up and to have a voice in. And so I can give you more specific examples, Jack, but I see it every day on my street in Winchester, kids that are not signing into school, kids that are not getting fed, families who are struggling. We lost housing over here across from Mr. Mike's because of the fire. My husband and I own property here in Winchester. We're trying to help our tenants who can't pay their rent. These are issues that are facing our community, and we're going to be impacted by the results of this pandemic for several years to come. And so these are some of the things. I want to be here. We're not going anywhere. We love living here. My husband owns Tri-State Chimney. We are very committed to this community, but I want my select board to take a strong stand on what people in this community need, and I'm not sure where you all stand on that.
Economically, we've done a lot in the last few years. I'm not sure if we were able to watch the meeting last week, but we had an update from the chairman of the Winchester Economic Club.
Yeah, Mark, yes.
Mark came in, he has a process that he's speaking with right now. I spoke with the owners of J&J Trailers today. They're in the process of putting up a, is it 50 by 80 building? Addition, I believe. Their business is booming, and if it continues, they're probably going to be looking at some more houses. They're going to be local. It's lovely to see open signs on a barber shop on Main Street, the dining grill.
Sure.
Selectman Roberts is in the process of putting up a new machine shop in our water road. So economically, I think we're heading in the right direction. Socially, there was no example, so I'm not sure if I can, if you're going economic, social, changing, middle class, we live in a very low and moderate income society. And I think what happens is not just town of Winchester, but small town USA are handcuffed by local is, county, federal, state levels. And as you're all aware, it falls back on the communities. And so to try to level out the playing field is, to get a job from Dunkin' Donuts at $10 an hour to Compaq at $20 an hour. I'm not sure that small town USA, we're gonna have a level playing field for everyone, if that's what we're looking for. I think the main goal is to continue to try to bring in even something that you spoke about, the house that I own, and I work closely with the county on people that are released from the local jail.
Yeah.
And, I'm quite happy and quite proud to say that my wife and I have done jobs for several people that come out of there. And got them back on their feet and they moved on to, their own.
Yeah, I know. We've hired one of those folks, so Paul's hired one of those folks. I'm quite aware of them.
They're not all successful.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, Jack. And I think, again, this is just, I think I would like this community and I would like the select board to take some leadership in bringing a community conversation forward about what do we really stand for in terms of inclusion, in terms of social justice. I would like this select board.
Oh, so that's different.
No, it's not. No, that's not. No, that's not different. It's actually not different, I don't think, because what we're talking about is this is a community where even people who struggle. So here's an example. One of my concerns is I hear that we have a new welfare officer.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We have a new welfare officer.
Yeah.
Right, who's come into the position, right? So I'm curious, and I haven't got an answer from her yet, but I would like to know if I've heard rumors that this community is going to start a welfare to work program.
We have a program in place, and very much like many other programs, and many other communities, it isn't a work program per se. It's, I guess I can say this without saying any names. The RSA agreed that anyone that comes in for any type of assistance from the town keeps record of that, and they have to make an account to pay that.
I know, some of my tenants have received that, yes.
So the program is basically set up, instead of trying to take money out of your pocket, listen, we'll help you, but, the cemetery needs some help. It's simple as that.
Sure.
So it's following with the RSA. It isn't any more than that. And I'm glad you brought up the welfare company. We've heard people speak of it lately about, this is in a negative tone. Well, I checked as of last week, the same time the calendar year ago.
That wouldn't be surprising, given that we're in the middle of an
So
economic
it
crisis.
isn't in a negative light that,
Sure.
the only thing is that we've done, and this board has asked welfare officers to do, is to bring it up to the state RSAs. And there's a whole lot of paperwork that goes along with that.
Yeah.
You just can't walk in and say, give me money.
No, I know that. So again, what I would like, what I'm asking for, and I appreciate you, Jack, your colleagues here, your comrades are not responding, so I appreciate you responding, is I would like folks to understand the deeper systemic issues when we're talking about poverty and welfare. This town has a lot of stigma. My daughter goes to Keene High School, okay? She tells me every 2 days that she comes home, because she's there 2 days a week, what she hears about being a Winchester kid. Now, Ella was really lucky because she was able to go to a private school because we were able to get financial aid. Now she's at a public high school, which is a great experience for her, but she hears about poor Winchester kids, Winchester incester, you know, how can you live on Parker Street? You can't afford to live. All these kinds of comments and stereotypes that get sent to our kids. So what I'm saying to you is, yes, you know, we have known for a long time since we have lived here what the stigma is and what some of these narratives are about this town. And what I would like is the select board to understand that these are systemic issues. We do a lot of victim blaming in our society about people who are getting support and help. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I would like you to educate yourselves, and I would like you to start making more public statements about how we are a community that supports and welcomes people, and that we don't blame the victim in these kinds of situations. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about poverty. And I think our school is doing an amazing job of that, and I would like you as the leaders of this community to be more upfront. My last comment, because I don't want to take all the time, is there is a conversation going on across the state of New Hampshire right now about anti-racism and systemic racism. This is a problem that I'm very well aware of because I do a lot of work in this area. I have a doctorate in social justice education. I teach about this. I train police officers and law enforcement across the states of New Hampshire and Vermont. This is an issue that is going to come down the pike to Winchester. And there's a reason why we don't have more people of color living in this community. Because people of color don't believe that they can be here and this can be a welcoming community.
I don't.
We are
not
gonna, let me
true.
finish, please.
Ma'am.
Oh, I have the floor. I will finish.
Okay.
I will finish. There is an anti-racism statement going around. I know what you're going to talk about because it's something that we're asking House representatives and senators to sign. You don't need to sign that statement. But what I would like you to do, I have the floor, please, is I would like this select board, leaders of our community, to make a prominent statement about how they are opposed to any kind of racial injustice, intolerant of racist comments and racist behavior in our community. Now, that does not mean that that stuff has happened visibly, but the power of that statement for this community to be out front and to say that we are a community that cares about everyone, and everyone is welcome here, and we will not tolerate homophobia, misogyny, sexism, or racism, or any kind of intolerance, is something that would take this town out front and put us out front economically and socially. And we have had these conversations before, and people say, well, we don't have racism here because we don't have people of color here. Well, guess what? There's racism everywhere. You can have this whole town full of African Americans and we would still have racism, whether they were here or not. So I'm telling you, I want to stay here in this community. I want to raise my kid. I want my grandkids to be raised here, but I want this leadership here to start making more of a forceful statement about things that are going on in the 21st century and in the state of New Hampshire. And right now, up at the legislative branch of our state, up in Concord, we don't have that representation. We don't have people speaking on our behalf and saying that we are a community that cares about injustice. And we need that, or this town is not going to move forward and the needle will never move forward. Thank you.
Well, if you want to look back at the minutes from roughly about a year ago, right now, It was about a whole month-long conversation that we did make those statements, and we had a few conversations with members of the public throughout that month, and each one of those meetings, there were corrections made, and those statements were made about a year ago to date. And I'm going to leave it at that. Is there anybody else from the public?
Hello, Mr. Siddell, 32 Headlands Road, Winchester. I'm here to thank the fire department for last week. There was a fire on Headlands Road. They did a wonderful job putting out the fire. They did a great job. Wonderful people. I have one problem though. The fire should have been preventable. And the fire should have been preventable by town staff. And here's the reason why. A neighbor converted his oil to propane. No problem, happens all the time in town. Neighbor decides to take the old oil tank out and cut it in half. Great. Catches his backyard on fire. Problem is, this oil tank is within 75 feet of the lake. Shouldn't have happened in the first place. Theoretically, this house was inspected by the fire chief for his brand new propane tank. Problem is, the propane tank's in the wrong place and should have been caught by town staff because it's a zoning problem. Because now you put the propane tank within 30 feet of your setback, so it should have been caught by town staff during the permit process. It was not. It was not caught by the town staff during the permit process. It was not caught by the fire chief when the person put the propane tank within 4 feet of their driveway, right where the plow drives. And this is an underground tank. So you could have easily, during any storm, taken the top of the tank right off, taken the valve off. Which everybody knows what Headlands Road is. It's a one-lane road. You can't get out the other side because of what happened with the new fence. So if that tank went up, my house would go up. All the other houses within, we'll say 100 feet easily, could have gone up. This is all preventable if the fire chief was doing his job properly. I asked the fire chief if he inspected. He said yes. I actually saw him do the inspection. I then said to him, you know it has to be 10 feet away from any ignition source. They put it 4 feet from their driveway with nothing around it. He goes, well, that's a sidewalk. That's interesting. It's not a sidewalk. And here's the other problem. It would have been caught if a site plan was required. So now you got a homeowner that's taking advantage of the town because we have had building inspector issues. He's been working on this house over a year. Didn't pull permits when he started until I started to complain, and the town staff had to go out twice to get him to pull a permit. And then even then, when town staff went out, the town staff member basically washed everything away and said, we don't require any of this. Well, if someone's building a foundation, it requires an inspection. So you have a longtime town staff member who's not qualified to do to figure out basic information. This is not the building inspector because you didn't have a building inspector at the time. You had somebody else covering this. Now and I'm not putting names out here because it's a staff member and I want to be respectful. In 5 minutes of reading the building permit, I've pulled out a half a dozen problems instantly, just looking at the building permit in front of her. You're putting a brand new door on a window that's 8 feet off the ground with no documentation. Right now, he's building a platform that's on the lakeside that can't be built without a building permit. But there's no building permit. Because the only building permit that's signed by the town says he's putting new siding on, changing the roof, putting new windows in. Didn't even really notice that he moved his outside doors. his entrance doors to the house. So, I love the guys on the fire department, but your fire chief blew it in a big way. He blew the inspection. Your town staff blew their inspections, and the basic information for building permits blew it completely. I respect the fact that we've had building inspector issues for the last year or two. But I expect town staff members that are on staff to be able to do their job and to catch problems before it gets to you guys. Fair enough? That's what I'm saying. And the second part of the chief, I know that there's individuals in town that have been trying to get on the fire department. I know that their applications have been disappearing or different things have been said. But the bottom line is, you have a fire chief that's not doing their job. I have 3 other incidents on Headlands Road of brand new heating systems. I overheard one contractor say, I don't have to call the fire chief. I already emailed him. He's not coming out. Really? You don't come out and do an inspection on a new heating system? This is my problem. I don't think you guys are aware of it. That's why I'm bringing it up. I have no problem with the firefighters. I have a problem with the chief dropping the ball. Fair enough? And your building department dropping the ball. People are taking advantage of this town because of the building department issue. They're doing work without permits. When you guys are catching them, or people are complaining, and then they go out and catch them, you don't take advantage of the penalties you have. The guy then, in particular, that I'm referring to, is a contractor by trade. He knows better. His truck says it all over it that he's a contractor. He knows better. He knows he needs a building permit. He knows he's taking advantage of the town. He knows it. It's not like some brand new homeowner that said, I want to do something, let's play nice and we'll talk. He's a contractor taking advantage of the situation in this town. That's my problem. And I rarely come up to board meetings. I rarely come in. I talk to town staff. I've already brought up my concerns to town staff, to your administrator. So I'm bringing it up to you guys, because I don't know if it made it to you yet. So I'd like you to be aware of it. But I'll drop off some pictures that show exactly where the tank is in relationship to the driveway. It's obvious. You can't put a tank where you could drive on it. And the picture of the oil tank that caught on fire that he was cutting up on his back porch in a lake zone where we're not even allowed to change our oil in our driveway. That's illegal in the state of New Hampshire because we're in a protection zone, lake protection zone, and you're cutting up a 275-gallon oil tank on your back porch. Last thing, your zoning rules. We need to address fences in this town. I found out that if I put a fence up that's under 5 feet tall in the front of my house, I can put it right up to the road because it's not a structure. That is ridiculous in this town. It's unsafe for people for the highway department. It's unsafe for a road like Headlands Road where it's too small and you need that little bit of soft shoulder. It's a fence. I don't care if it's 2 feet tall. It's a structure. The fact that your rules say that it isn't, or your staff interprets the rules that it isn't, is ridiculous. It would take care of the fence problem in this town instantly. There's no reason why anybody should put a fence directly up to the road line. There should be some offset off the road line, at least 4 feet or 5 feet, just for safety purposes. For snow, there's no snow shelf. I don't even want to put my mailbox on the road line because I know plows could hit it. And I'm not saying it happens, but we need to address building codes, zoning. You have zoning rules, building rules, permit application that is so lax, I could practically renovate my own entire house and never pull a permit. I can replace my roof and never pull a permit. I can replace every window in my house and never pull a building permit, which is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Think of the revenue you're losing. Not just revenue, but think of the codes that people aren't following. There's energy codes. Who's following those? You go into Home Depot and half the windows in Home Depot do not meet the energy code standards for the state of New Hampshire. Most people don't know that. I don't even think your town staff knows it. And for the record, my job is to teach students and apprentices how to build houses. I'm nationally certified to do this. I'm even in a textbook as an expert. So it's not like I'm just somebody that doesn't have a clue. I'm fully aware of the codes. I'm fully aware of why codes exist. I'm fully aware of why codes help us and save us. But the fact that town staff, namely the fire chief, blew it. 100%. And there's no records. All the records should be in the office behind me. Where are they? All building permits, all permits for anything, a copy should be behind me. Where are they? They should be available for public inspection like that. Where are they? Where's your fire records? I respect the fact that it's a potentially separate organization, but they still respond to the town. You still treat them as a separate department of the town. Where's their records? Where are they? All building permits, all permits should come through the office behind me. I respect they go to different people, but that should be the clearinghouse. Why isn't it? It makes no sense. I respect the fact I got to go to a highway person for a driveway cut. I get that, but it should all start at the office behind me. And I can also go up Headlands Road and find half a dozen driveway cuts that have been expanded over the years. Quickly, just like that. And I know that my area, because of the taxes, because of theoretically the value of the land, some things get overlooked because the more you build onto the houses, the more tax money you get. I get that. But my family's owned the property that I'm in for over 75 years. I'm not going anywhere. I have many family members in this town. I'm not going anywhere. I'm tired of new people coming into town, taking advantage of the town, and then the town staff dropping the ball. Fair enough? That's my points. I will leave some pictures of the house, the oil tank cut in half and covered in scorch marks. I'll drop you a picture of the driveway with the tank. These are easily noticed by anyone. Doesn't take an expert to realize something's wrong. And I know right now they're adding a deck tonight that isn't on the building permit. That should have went through the state because it's on the lakeside. I have to follow the rules. Why isn't the rest of my neighborhood doing it? Fair enough? Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And as you stated, quite a bit of that we obviously did not have knowledge of.
Of course.
So.
And I respect that. That's why I'm bringing it up, because not everything makes it through town staff to you guys. Fair enough?
Well, everything usually does get to us. It just hasn't yet. We haven't heard anything on that
Percolates
yet.
through.
Right. So we are now aware of it, and there will be questions asked, and hopefully we can, if you're going to drop information off with Carrie, then
I'm going to
we
leave
should
it
have.
with her tonight so that you can,
Yeah.
because of restrictions, I'm not going to hand it to you guys personally.
Yep.
Fair enough.
So we will have a way to contact you and eventually answer some of your questions for you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time. Please, ask any question you want.
You made a statement that the copy of any building permits or any of the permits should be.
Behind me.
Did
Yes, the very next day, I came in the building. The permits, I have a copy of 2 permits, which I went through, which are incomplete, extremely incomplete because there's no site plan. They're missing drawings of where he wanted to add stuff. And I can see that he mentioned it, but didn't put everything in. There's no fire department inspections for any of the heating, for any of the propane tank, anything like that. There is a permit for the tank, but there's no inspection for it in the building.
I just wanted to get that on there.
Please. Yes, they did pull a permit only after I had to call town, and town staff had to go out twice to get them to pull the permits. But thank you for your question, Jack. I appreciate it. Any other questions? Because I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm all set, thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Ben.
Well, that is definitely the end of the public comment. I will now entertain a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A32, little C and E, B, C, and E.
Second.
Now, roll call vote, Jack Marsh. James Rokes. Herb Stevens. Gloria Lustek.
Aye.
Ben Kalinsky, aye. We are now in non-public, and I do not foresee us having any other business. We should, yeah.